welcome to this new video for my channel, The Mental Traveler. I'm Caro Herrera, and today I'm going to be talking about a biography and its movie adaptation of the last Tsar of Russia and his wife, Nicholas II and Alexandra. Before I begin though, let me just say that unless you don't know what happens to the last Tsar of Russia and his family, and if you're not that familiarized with the events happening in Russia 100 years ago, as well as their outcome, beware, there will be spoilers. Anyways, the book's official name is Nicholas and Alexandra, an intimate account of the last of the Romanovs and the fall of Imperial Russia. It was published in 1967, and its author, Robert K. Massie, was inspired to write it because his son suffered from hemophilia, which is a disease that Nicholas and Alexandra's only son and heir, the Tsarevich Alexei, also had. A movie adaptation was released in 1971 starring Michael Jaston, Janet Sussman, Laurence Olivier, Tom Baker, Michael Redgrave, Lynn Frederick, Timothy West, John Wood, Brian Cox, Ian Holm, Roy Dotrice, Julian Glover, among many, many more. The biography tells us about a very famous and important married couple, Nicholas II and Alexandra, better known as the last Tsar and Tsarina of Imperial Russia. The story gives us background and a clear idea of the historical setting of the late 19th century Russia before we meet these two persons. When we do meet them, we follow them from their early years to their last moments in this earth. All in all, this biography not only made me feel like I was really getting to know Nicholas and Alexandra in detail, both as a married ruling couple, but as individuals too, even as I learned so much about the historical and political events that were taking place in Russia during the last decade of the 19th century up to 1919. One of the things that I really like about the story of Nicholas and Alexandra is that, unlike many other royal marriages, theirs was a union of love right from the start, and up until their brutal murders they were still very much in love. After almost a decade of being fascinated by the lives of the last Romanovs, I found, though, that my interest in them has changed with time. Before, it was their love story and their ancestry what particularly attracted me to them. But now, after years of researching their lives in different ways, I can't help but accept that Nicholas and Alexandra were highly flawed people, not just as rulers, but even as parents. But that's what makes them even more fascinating, and Robert K. Massie manages to bring back to life two iconic, important historical figures by giving us more than just glimpses into their private lives. By quoting their correspondence to each other, we get to see quite a personal aspect of Nicholas and Alexandra that helps us shape in our minds who these people were. That helps us better to understand why they did what they did, and in my case, to defend and justify them endlessly. This biography isn't pro-royalist propaganda though. They choose what explanation could be closer to what actually happened. As to the movie, I think it's a great epic motion picture. It's quite long, but that just helps make it even more iconic. It's a wonderful, beautiful adaptation, and it covers so many of the points covered in the book, manages to present to us the lives with made-up dialogue that nonetheless manages to feel authentic. All in all, it's one of the best ways to learn history, by being entertained by a film as good as Nicholas and Alexandra that doesn't feel like it's rejecting historical facts in favor of Hollywood drama. I give Nicholas and Alexandra both the book and its film adaptation a 5 out of stars review, and highly recommend them. The book is a bit outdated, but it's wonderfully researched nonetheless. And I mean, particularly if you remember that it was published in the 60s, when the Soviet Union was still in power and the mystery surrounding the fate of the family of the last Tsar of Russia was shrouded in mystery, secret, and lies. It's quite impressive that this author managed to get so much information about it and compile it into a book. So it adds even a greater meaning to it because the author could really get into the protagonist's shoes, seeing as both their sons have hemophilia. It's very touching. Talking about research though, in the 8 years that I've been a royalist and a lover of the Romanovs, I've learned so much about them that in this, my second reread of the novel, not really learning anything new regarding the imperial family, but the book still gave me tons of information that I had previously overlooked before, or not really minded that much. For example, how the provisional government that was set in Russia after the Tsar abdicated came about, and what its role was, and how it differed from a government system that came afterwards. And the same thing happened with the October Revolution. Regarding the movie, it has gorgeous costumes, settings, scripts, and performances. For years it fueled my fire for this royal marriage to the point where I was a bit ignorant of all its aspects, and thus, after watching a documentary about how Nicholas and Alexandra weren't the best of parents in some regards, I still struggle with the impression the actors from this film left me of Nicholas and Alexandra as I try to reconciliate some things about them with what the real Tsar and Tsarina did. I've watched it countless times and it's still as powerful to me as the first time I saw it. Overall, if you like epic, passionate, dramatic stories of what may happen when a monarch lets himself be ruled by his heart rather than by his head, this story is for you, because in the end, just as the official title of the book says, you learn not only about Nicholas and Alexandra, but what caused their downfall: Rasputin, Lenin, World War I, hemophilia, and so many other external elements aside from their inner flaws. I've been a fierce monarchist since I was 18, as I said earlier, and over the years, Nicholas and Alexandra have become some of my top royals. Sure, they weren't the best at ruling, but their lives, their ancestry, their love story, their marriage, themselves as individuals, and as a couple, everything about them fascinated me right from the start. Sure, when I was a little girl, I saw and enjoyed the movie Anastasia, little guessing that as I grew older, it would be her parents, the ones I really felt drawn to. Now though, Nicholas's mother has become my favorite Romanov. Anyways, when I was 18, I was discovering all of these movies about the monarchies of Europe, England, France, Russia, Austria, and that's how I came to learn of Nicholas and Alexandra. And because I always like to read a book after I fall in love with its movie, Adaptation, I bought the biography, and I think I read it for the first time in 2015, and just having recently reread it, I still cried at several points towards the last 150 pages particularly, and I still plan on rereading it several times throughout my life. There is so much more that I could say about the Romanovs, but I'd rather save it for future videos. So for the moment, this is all I have to say about my review of Nicholas and Alexandra, the book and the movie. Please let me know if you enjoyed it or not, and what are your own thoughts on the Romanovs, because I would love to talk about them with you. In the description box below, you can find a link to the Goodreads page for the book, as well as a link to the IMDb page for the movie. Anyways, I'm Cara Herrera, the Mental Traveler, and I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you're in the world. I'll be seeing you soon. Goodbye.